That is right. Michigan trying to get to the Elite Eight with a victory tonight in Atlanta over the number 1 seed Auburn. It's a great time to be alive if you're a Michigan sports fan, and we're here to partly celebrate and talk about the ongoings as the March Madness continues. And we have Jerry Diorio, who played football at Michigan, and he's been so kind to join us on this Friday. Jerry, you look good. What's going on?
It's a beautiful day here in Orlando. Great to be a Michigan Wolverine, Denny. Excited about tonight. Wow, what a turnaround in one season from basketball, huh?
Yep, they've done a great job, and if they could win tonight and possibly another one, it would go down as one of the great seasons for Michigan basketball ever. So there's 2 wins away from being in that rare air, and we're certainly going to talk about that. We've also got some football to talk about. The spring game, there's been some movement on the spring game that we'll tell you about. And also the quarterback position, a lot of talk about, of course, Bryce Underwood, but some other talk about the position that is intriguing that we will get to as well. But we are going to start with the Sweet 16 and Michigan taking on Auburn. Now, Michigan's won 2 games, put themselves in position to play the number 1 seed. Jerry, let me ask you, all of the favorites won last night, and it's been most of the favorites have advanced in this tournament. That's been the story so far. And then it was reinforced last night. Both of the number 1 seeds won easily. And really, Texas Tech and Arkansas was a close game. Actually, it was a great game. Went into overtime. But you're having the seeds hold up. Does that make you feel good, or is you worried? Or did you look at that at all towards your feeling about Michigan tonight?
A couple of things, Denny. First of all, by the way, who won that Arkansas game? I fell asleep and didn't even look it up. I forgot to.
Texas Tech won in overtime.
They did win in overtime. Wow. Well, coming out of last night, you got to say the SEC is doing pretty well. And I'm looking at my bracket, and year after year, I always tend to go towards the higher seeds. I very rarely have I picked them upsets, and that's why my brackets are always skewed. This year, I did the same basic thing, and my brackets are pretty much still intact. So I'm in second place in my family's poll right now. So, it is. It's looking like a lot of the seeds have been good, and a lot of the favorites are advancing, and the SEC's holding their own pretty well.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to talk yourself into Michigan winning tonight, and there's a bunch of ways that you can do that. I think with the results from last night and that the favorites have been winning, you just say, hey, well, it's March Madness. It's not going to be that way. So, it's time for an upset. I mean, you can say that. So anyway, if you're trying to feel good about it, you would go that direction. The odds makers have pushed Auburn as a bigger favorite since the matchup came out at 6.5, 7.5. It's up to 8.5. That might worry you. But if I'm a Michigan fan, you get to this part, and you do know that it just takes one game. They're not playing a 7-game series. This is what I come back to. And that I don't think Michigan, if they were playing a 7-game series against Auburn, would get swept. I think they would lose a 7-game series, but I think that they would win a couple games. And so if Michigan brings their A game, and we have seen that, and it involves their 2 big men, Area 51, maybe getting Johnny Broome into some foul trouble, getting the Auburn experienced guards. They might not have a great shooting night, and Michigan could, and that's how you pull the upset. To me, that's the recipe. Area 51 gets after the front court of Auburn and gets them into foul trouble, and Michigan can win this game.
Denny, a couple things. First of all, we limped into the Big Ten tournament. I was just looking at this and trying to see some things about how we can win this game, and if we can win this game. Auburn hasn't been the hottest team in March. They've lost a few in a row, got beat in their tournament. So they've had some issues going down the stretch. They've been known to lose those big games under this coach. And it's a great program. They've got a great team. Broom is a phenomenal player. He's, maybe the player of the year. But I think we can match up. Again, here's the deal. And I said this a couple of weeks ago when we first got, when we were first in the tournament. We've got to take care of what Michigan does. Michigan, if we can control the ball, if we don't have the turnovers that we have traditionally this year, if we can protect our glass, keep them off their offensive boards, and we've got to stop them from getting clean shots on the three behind the arc. In my opinion, I think you got to take away the arc before you take away Broom inside. And so kind of let Broom have his points, but don't let anybody else get hot from the outside. Protect the outside arc.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. When I've watched Auburn play, they're not a team that stands around the three-point line and just passes it around or tries to run some sort of Peja action to get their guys open. Their guys, a lot of it, they're on the break, and they're shooting it from 25 feet. They're just coming down and they're pulling, and they'll pull from everywhere. And you can watch them and say, wow, man, at times it looks like an NBA game the way they play. But if they're not going in, then it looks a little sloppy, and then it looks a little rushed when it comes down to that. So I don't know what Michigan does. If you let them shoot 25-footers if they're coming down on the break, I think that what we saw last game, Texas A&M was supposed to be this ferocious team on the glass, and they were going to get, send 5 guys, and Michigan was going to get pushed around, and they weren't. Michigan was able to control the rebounding. Michigan took care of the ball, and those two things, I would be encouraged if I was a Michigan fan, again, looking for the upset, to pull the upset, knowing that it's March, knowing that you're coming off, I think you're the best game that you've played all year long, certainly the biggest game that they played all year long. And so that's why I put them in with a chance. You've got something that in the 2 7-footers that Auburn hasn't, no team has really had to deal with that. So Michigan has something unique there. So there's a path that Michigan wins this game and pulls the upset tonight.
Like I said, Denny, it starts with us. If we take care of what we do, it's I think it's going to come down to a late game. By the way, I thought it was a 9.5-point spread the last I looked.
Well, I was just looking at. I have 3 sites that I used, and that was from ESPN Bet.
Okay,
the one that I went with, but it could be different. You do see that when you look around, and so 9.5. Wow. All right. That was right before I came on. I looked at that too. So we'll see. Maybe ESPN Bet will adjust. So, the other thing is just as an aside, you have to stay up late for tonight's. I practiced last night, and it was tough. I mean, you got these games tipping off at damn near 10 o'clock. That you're going to be in for the long haul. Now, look, it's the good part for Michigan fans is that the majority of people that will be watching this game, they don't have to get up. It's not a weekday, so you can sleep in till 8 or 9 o'clock or whatever you want to do on a Saturday. So that's nice. It would have been it wouldn't have been nice if they would have been playing the late game last night, like Arkansas and Texas Tech, because there would have been a lot of blurry-eyed Michigan fans, especially if it went to overtime. So there you go. Well, that's it, Jared. Do you want to make a pick on the game?
Well, I'm always going to pick Michigan, Denny. I'm a homer. I admit that right up front. I'm not, I honestly believe Michigan was going to beat Ohio State last fall when I picked that one. Mm-hmm. I'm having a hard one on this one. But if Michigan controls their game, if they take care of the ball, protect the glass, stop them from their outside three-pointer, yeah, we got a shot as well as anybody. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the card I'm playing the March Madness card. So you look at it, and there's a reason that Auburn was the number 1 overall seed and had their 8.5, 9-point favorite. They've got a tremendous amount of experience. They've got a superstar player in Broom. So they have all of that. And yet for Michigan, I talked about their path, and because it is March Madness, I'm picking Michigan to win this game 80-78. So
two more things in your pocket, Denny. Two more issues in your pocket. Trey Donaldson knows the Auburn system. He's been there for a couple years, so he knows a little bit. I'm sure he's put some information out there to his teammates. And Wolf beat him last year in the tournament.
Yeah, and maybe Bruce Pearl. Bruce Pearl has made a Final Four before with Auburn, but maybe that he's also, like last year, dropped a game in the first round. So we've seen it where some of his teams have gone down, and coaches get that knock against him, and that knock, of course, if Michigan did, would be brought up in spades by everybody about, Pearl's just not a big game coach. And so there's that part too. We don't know.
A lot of pressure on that team. A senior orient, a lot of kids leaving that team, a lot of pressure on that team. They've got to win this game for it to be any kind of a good season. And Michigan's, playing with house money.
Well, I would agree with that. They've already had a wonderful season, and the future looks bright with Dusty May pictured on the screen with this game going off tonight. A reminder that after the game tonight, we'll have the Michigan basketball post-game live show. Sweet 16 Elite 8 edition will be down to 8 teams because Michigan will be the last one to tip off. So we will look forward to the Elite 8 and what could be a Michigan and Michigan State matchup. How about that?
Just have your hot milk ready, Denny, or your coffee ready.
I'll tell you, if it's Michigan and Michigan State tonight, we could just. It's going to be a late night. It's going to be a late night. I don't know. I don't know how it'll be contained, how far it will go, but it will be an adrenaline type driven show. If that is the case, heck, if it's just
can Mississippi beat Michigan State this week? Can Mississippi beat State this week, Denny?
Yeah, I think they can. I think it could happen. So yeah, I'm not so much worried about that one. It's getting Michigan through is Absolutely. The one, but it would be really something for the area if you can have both Michigan and Michigan State. They've never played in the NCAA tournament. I've long talked about. What if you could have these teams like in a Final Four? Well, it would be to go to the Final Four. That's pretty darn. That'd be pretty darn impressive if for the area to be able to get it, and for the Big Ten, that would be sweet. If you want to know the latest with what's going on with Michigan basketball, football, I present to you Rivals.com. I present to you the Maize and Blue Review. And for you to join up, a great time during spring football, like if you're thinking or if you've thought to yourself at all over the last week or month that, I just want more. I want more Michigan coverage. Well, this is your answer. I'm serving it up for you right here. Go to michigan.rivals.com, join up, and guess what? We're talking about Michigan all day, all night. Over on the Den, it's a fun place to be. Even late last night, as Auburn, Jerry, was making 25 threes, they put up the graph of the team in the
You mean Alabama, Denny?
What did I say?
You said Auburn. You mean Alabama with the 25 threes last night.
You're right. That's exactly what I meant. And they broke the record of 21 that was set by Loyola Marymount back in 1990. And that was. And the one kid hit 11 triples. Fryer, I think his name was. And
years. This guy is. He was coming down and just past half court and throwing them up. I saw a few. The announcer on ESPN said he made so many they couldn't put them all on the highlights.
The 90 team, you never want to see Michigan go down, but the 90 Loyola Marymount team. They had their player die out on the court, Hank Gathers, who was going to be a first-round pick. And so Bo Kimball, they were playing with the emotion that you just can't as anything. They were sky high. They were playing for a fallen teammate. You get stuff like that going on. That was a buzzsaw. whatever they scored 190 points. I mean, they everything went in. It felt like they were being helped from somewhere.
Yep.
Even off the court. And even as a Michigan, you're a Michigan fan, you're watching that, you say, hey, you saw it, you felt it, and it's not like you could, cuss them out or anything. A terrible tragedy. What happened?
I remember there was players taking left-handed foul shots in memory, remembrance of them.
Yeah, I think Bo Kimball, who was on that team, I think he did that in the tournament. It was very emotional. You're tearing up, you're shooting a left-handed free throw. I think that he continued that into his pro career, maybe his first free throw. I don't know how long, but if memory serves me correct, we're talking about 34 years ago now, Jerry. Come on, 35 years ago. I don't know. So yeah, I mean, but it was something like that. All right. So Wednesday, we found out that the Michigan spring game is going to be played. There were a lot of teams that decided to opt out of the spring game after Michigan's media that they had planned for Wednesday. I went up to Dave Abloff, who runs everything there for Michigan, and the director of public relations and all, and said, hey, is the Big Ten strong arming you guys to have this game? And he looked at me, and it was kind of a funny way to ask him, but he's like, no, we're going to still have the game. I said, yeah, Sharon wants to have that game. He said, but he started talking about women's lacrosse and, that they were going to put on. He said, but it's going to be tape delayed. And come to find out, Jerry, that the transfer portal closes after April the 19th. And so the game that will be played, Michigan's tape delayed game, the portal will already be closed. Now, that doesn't mean if you're a team out there and you want to pick Michigan players off, you've got some NIL money sitting in your back pocket, there's nothing stopping you from driving up to Ann Arbor and watching this game, getting your binoculars out. Let me ask you, Jerry, if you were a coach for another team, do you think you could, without taping a player and just watching a spring game, that you would be saying, okay, this is a guy that we want to, throw some money at and try to, steal from Michigan? And
sight unseen. Is that what you're telling me, Denny?
Well, no, you get to see him, but you're sitting in the stands. Maybe you're you're pulling out your old Connor Stallions. I don't know if there's a rule about being able to tape. I know the bylaws about not being able to. I know, Jerry, it's a touchy subject, and I know I could say it sets you off. There's no bylaw, I don't think, for a spring game that you can, that you can't video record what's going on down there. I'll be interested to see, like, who's taping this? I'd be interested to see if Michigan does anything. If you're an Ohio State fan sitting right on the 50 with a, camcorder over there, somebody going to come down and tap you on the, okay. I don't know. So there's the question, Jerry. Do you think you could go down there and watching these guys live and confirm something to you if you wanted to?
It all depends on the situation, Denny. What are my needs as a coach? Am I that desperate that I need this spot filled with somebody else, or at least make it more competitive? Yeah, I might make a ride up to Ann Arbor and watch the game live and make my decision based on that, especially if he was on the recruiting numbers. But here's the thing that really bothers me, Denny. We're talking about this, and we should not be talking about it. This transfer portal situation should have been taken care of a couple years ago. They knew that this was happening. They knew that there were going to be timelines that were not going to be good for teams that are winning and that such thing. So the NCAA, once again, in its infamous wisdom, blew a great opportunity to police this thing more. There's no way there's no way the best situation is to bring in a kid into the fall that did not go through spring. That's not a good situation. That's not a good – that if I'm coaching a team and I'm counting on people coming, I don't even know if they're healthy, how healthy they are. I'm counting on my season based on somebody coming in that I really don't know much about. Okay? The NCAA should have taken care of all this a long time ago, put boundaries and time limits on when people can enter the transfer portal and when the transfer portal closes. This transfer portal should have been closed before any kind of spring practice began. Because once spring practice begins, I think, in my opinion, if you haven't had that kid for spring practice, it's like starting a freshman.
Well, I agree. I think everyone would agree with you. I think even the people in the NCAA would agree with you, but they would say, hey, Jerry, we do this and we immediately get hit with a lawsuit saying that you're restricting our players' movement, that, this is free enterprise. That
might be the one that they could win.
Well, I don't know if they could win because they went the Virginia case that you point to. That would be the one that further opened this up where they were able to pay players prior.
They have deadlines now. There's a deadline this Saturday.
Yeah.
So what's the difference?
Well, that's a good question, Jerry. That is a good question. I think that's the one that I can't answer. So,
and that's the infamous wisdom of the NCAA shining through quite clearly once again.
Well, there's probably a reason for it. The deadline to declare for the NBA draft, is right around then. So that could be why they put it in. And so that, that would be, I don't think that they just picked a number out of a hat. There's usually a reason. I'm not, me sticking up for the NCAA.
No, I know.
It sounds pretty stupid because that's not a body that anybody respects or is thinking, oh yeah, let's back up the NCAA.
Let's see what they say.
Especially with what's going on now. So yeah, I do think I don't know. You try to pick a player and you don't want to make anyone sound like they're on the way out. But let me I'll pick one anyways. Eno Etta, who I like, is one of my favorite players on the team. He came to Michigan. He came on the podcast here. I've seen him down there last spring game and spoke with him. But let's just say that Etta. We know that Michigan brought in Payne and Williams from the transfer portal. And so he might be in the 2 deep, he might not be. But if you're a team that you think is desperate, that you're desperate for some interior defensive line help, so you write down Etta's name, and you might just want to say, hey, is he moving? Is he healthy? We like him. We saw what what kind of prospect he was in high school. We've seen his limited tape at Michigan. We'll just go there in person, and if he looks like he's 100% healthy, we could make a run at him. I do think there'll be some of that that's going on. It'll be the interesting part to see if people come out with camcorders or whatever kind of recording devices, and if they're taking notes, and if Michigan is going to try to, I don't know how they can, but if they'll try to stop that, I don't know.
Again, my opinion is, Denny, again, the NCAA not handling this with any kind of competency. And if there's a hill to fight on, this would be one of them. To put down deadlines, this would be a hill that the NCAA should go.
Yeah, I think that what's going to happen is that of an entity like the Big Ten Network is going to say, look, we want our spring programming, our things that are being watched the most are Michigan and Ohio State spring games. We don't want them canceling this. We don't really want these tape delayed. We want to be able to play this. So let's get this portal, worked out. So, and they're the money one. So, the money talks. So I think that should be a factor. And it usually is with everything else. So I would think that TV would do a little bit of muscle flexing to see if they could get it how
are you going to tell Michigan you can't tape delay your game? How are you going to tell Michigan you can't show your game?
No,
Is that in the TV contracts?
Well, what it sounds like to me is that Michigan wants to play a spring game, but if they wanted to do it, I heard Abloff told me that there's something to do with lacrosse, but with all due respect to lacrosse, there's going to be a lot more people that's going to watch a Michigan football spring game than are going to watch lacrosse. And, the transfer portal closes after that. So it benefits Michigan to delay it. Plus, if there's anything that they wanted to edit out of there, although, there's going to be the people live, so I have
seen, if I'm wrong.
Go ahead.
Aren't there a number of other Big Ten teams that are not showing their game on TV, or not having a game, or not having a spring game?
Yeah, there's a lot of them, but not the big dogs. So Michigan State's not having one. Everybody's like, oh, who cares? Nobody outside of, if you went to Michigan State, you'd probably want to watch the spring game, but, who cares? Ohio State doesn't have a spring game. Michigan doesn't have a spring game. That's a national. There's people, they get big numbers for spring football. I would think that out of everything that they show, I would bet a Michigan spring football game does better than, hockey playoffs in the Big Ten, on the Big Ten Network. I think the only thing that does a better number than a Michigan spring game is an actual game. I wouldn't be surprised, Jerry, if a Michigan or Ohio State spring game got better numbers for the Big Ten Network than like a Minnesota-Iowa game of the Big Ten Network.
Doesn't surprise me.
That wouldn't surprise me either. So
that's why you don't bite the hand that feeds you like they did last year against Michigan.
Ooh, good point. Now, and when Lloyd Carr was the coach, Lloyd didn't necessarily want to have a spring game. He didn't want people, studying what was going on. And what he did is he made it super bland. And half of the so-called game was just station to station, the players just working with their own units there, the defensive line and the offensive line, just going through the different periods there. And then they would be out there and they would run some, some just from the offense and, different guys coming in like you see like at a practice that you would see. And then at the very end, they did a little bit of live stuff. I'm thinking, and I wonder if you were Sharon Moore, if we're going to have a really watered down, knowing that we know it's going to be tape delay, but you're going to have people live. You're just going to have a watered down version of a spring game.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, right.
Why wouldn't you?
Right.
Okay, let me explain something to you, Denny. Here's the deal. I can remember some things in my life because of my brain is getting a little bit short sometimes. But anyways, I can remember back my freshman year in my first spring game. I'll never forget it. We're coming off a Rose Bowl champion, Bo's first bowl game, ranked number 4 with everybody back basically on this team. And so our spring game was very popular, or not TV-wise like it is now, but the place was packed, and it was a great game. It came down to the last-second field goal. Bo cheated for the white team, which was against the blue team that had all the returners. So Bo was cheating for the white team. We kicked the field goal and won. What an exciting day. End of spring game, end of school season. What a glorious end to the season. Let's go into the next season. So now what are we doing? We're delaying the tape. We're watering. I mean, we had kicking game. We had change of everything. Just like a game situation. Now what are they doing? Watering it down. Why? Because people are leaving and because they didn't do the right thing on the transfer portal. And I know what you mean with Lloyd and some of these other coaches. Some of these other coaches had a different view. Bo liked that competition. He loves seeing that kind of stuff. Other coaches don't. But now what you're doing is you're kind of putting people in a position where they might lean towards getting away from it, getting away from that excitement.
Yeah, I think if I'm a Michigan fan and I'm not worried about guys that you're pretty sure are going to be in the 2 deep, but then there's also competition for, there's that whole 105-man roster. We always talk about depth and how important it is for a team. Well, your depth, if there are going to be a lot of guys that you would say wouldn't be in the 2 deep, but man, they're pretty close knocking on the door. And those are the guys I wonder if they're just going to be like, we're not really going to put them through the paces all too much. We're just going to, and in years past, these would exactly be the guys that you would feature. You would Absolutely. See the future of the team. So I'm just wondering if it's going to be different there. All right, Jerry, let's get to the quarterback position. And so we all know this, Bryce Underwood. And, I was on here Wednesday. I listened to the players talk about Underwood throwing the ball and how he carries himself and how he looked. And I'm sure that they're talking about him again today with the availability about Underwood and how he looks. There has also been word that one of the quarterbacks for Michigan has yet to practice, and that is the transfer from Fresno State, Mikey Keene. Now, Jerry, let's for a second suppose that is true. Keene, so what have they had? 4, maybe 5 practices. If Keene is not out there, what's the first thing that crosses your mind?
I think Bryce Underwood's the starting quarterback on day one. If Keene's not going to make it through spring ball, if he's not going to participate in any kind of spring practices, who's our quarterback coming out of spring ball? And I think we already know that Jaden Davis has been struggling. He's been struggling. Word out is Bryce Underwood is really doing well. Phenomenal. Phenom, I'm hearing. Some real wild words coming out to describe him. Whether that's true or not, I think right now he's in the best place to be the starting quarterback on day one if Keene doesn't get back here quick.
Yeah, the thing to me, Jerry, and I'm going to be sensitive towards last year's quarterback room and Sharon Moore's first year. And if I would say it, and I don't know if this is too harsh. They completely botched the quarterback room.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, maybe Keene is going to be fine, and maybe he's going to practice this weekend, and he'll get 9 practices in, and that's what I hope happens. But when you hear that the guy hasn't taken any snaps in practice, and then that Davis Warren, he's got a big question mark. He's not practicing in spring. He's not going to be able to participate in fall camp. They'll be lucky if he, by September or October would be out there. That's to me sounds like a dicey situation. Sounds like a Jack Tuttle type situation. And the Tuttle situation also makes me think about, last year they're like, oh, Tuttle was going to be fine. Well, I don't know. Tuttle wasn't fine. So if you got Warren already, when you think about the 105 number, I don't know what the injury is to Keene. And like I said, he could be out there, tomorrow, and he could be fine. But he has not been out there, which I would be really concerned about if I was on that Michigan football staff. I would say, guys, we just saw it last year. Our quarterback room was the worst in the country. So I would think that Michigan would be there's potential that they would be looking for an addition to the quarterback room in the spring portal.
What really bothers me about this is if this is true and Bryce Underwood basically comes out of spring as a starting quarterback, he really didn't have much competition. And how much better did he get by not competing with some solid potential prospects at quarterback? And so that's the twofold of the situation. We're going to probably be looking at a very inexperienced, right out of high school freshman quarterback starting for us that didn't really compete in the spring against a top prospect. So there's a lot on the table right there, Denny. We still have a very big quarterback issue on this team.
Well, I think that is a point that when I'm listening to you, I get. You wanted the whole reason to bring somebody like Mikey Keene is he had 2,000 snaps. He was the most experienced player on the whole team. He could push Underwood, and that he might be the best option when you get to New Mexico and heck through the first 4 or 5 games, whatever, a steady hand at the wheel, other than a kid who, is supremely talented and everything, but he's just going to turn 18 2 weeks prior to the opener. It wouldn't be the strangest thing, to have him, sit for a few games, but that is now, at least, I don't know, say it's up in the air, but at least makes you think about, wow, what's Michigan going to do here? You're looking at the quarterback room. You're like, wow, you're putting a lot of eggs in a freshly turned 18-year-old's basket.
Absolutely. And here, we're coming out, and our best quarterback in the room is Bryce Underwood. No doubt. Even with all the experience on the table with everybody, and Davis Warren, all that stuff, Bryce Underwood right now is our best option at quarterback.
Yeah, look, and I just want to emphasize this. There'll be a lot of people that'll be tuning in right now and saying, what's going on? How does Mikey Keene hurt? And, Rashad saying, was he hurt at the last of season or something? Why bring him into the first place? Yeah, I don't know. There's just been there's been word, and then there's some confirmation that he has not practiced yet. Now, so that just leaves it open to the first thing that I think of is, okay, he's hurt. So there could be something else. I would, if I was Sharon Moore and he wasn't hurt, I would come out and say it, for whatever he was dealing with, if he had something. Even if it was a minor injury, I think if I was Sharon Moore, I would have come out and said something too. Like, hey, just, he's pretty close to coming back in, but we thought we'd give him another week, maybe an ankle or so, whatever. I'm just, completely, speculating about it. But when you don't say anything and you're out there, well, what's going to happen is every single person is going to say, well, it could be this, and it could be anything under the sun. That is one of the issues when you're running Michigan that you have to think about. You're like, we want to keep it close to the vest, and we don't want to reveal anything. Well, if you don't reveal anything, then everything is going to be talked about as a possibility there. And it's not just people are sensitive to what happened last year. This coaching staff should be sensitive and what happened last year too. So,
hey, we didn't know who our quarterback was 2 days before the game, before the first game. Everybody thought it was Orji. Remember that all summer long we were talking Orji and how we needed to open up the running game and really design a run game around Orji. So you're right. I mean, I wish something would have been said about it. About Keene, but we'll see. We'll go from here. We'll see what's going on.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll Sharon Moore, we might hear from him on Monday. Maybe he's got something else that he'll want to say before then. We'll find out. All right, Jerry. So you're in the Eastern time zone here. So I mean, you're gonna be up past midnight tonight, checking it out. You got your game day clothes on here.
I got coffee brewing, Denny. I'm going to be up all night long, ready to go. Having my Diet Cokes and
Diet Coke. All right. That sounds like a game plan. I will talk with everyone after the game tonight. Special Michigan basketball post-game live show, NCAA tournament edition. Jerry, great job. We look forward to talking with you down the line.
Denny, great to be with you. Love all the comments. Hail to the victors, Denny.
There he is, Jerry Diorio. Talk to you tonight.